Welcome to Vinnie Politan Investigates. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott, filling in for Vinnie Politan. Tonight, our investigation centers on the tragic life and death of Madeline Soto. Prosecutors allege she was sexually abused for years. The abuse came to a tragic ending when she was murdered, allegedly at the hands of that same abuser. This horrific death coming just one day after her 13th birthday. This is her story. Madeline Soto was all dressed up and smiling as she posed for a picture at her 13th birthday party. It was a fun day surrounded by relatives and loved ones celebrating the start of her teenage years. But what Madeline didn't know was that it would be the last day on Earth alive. After the party, Madeline was dropped off by a relative at her house. Her mom, Jen, wasn't there because she was working. In fact, her mom had missed the party. So instead, her mom's on-again, off-again live-in boyfriend came over to watch Madeline and make sure she got ready for bed, because the next day was Monday, a school day. Jen got home around 10 p.m. and everyone went to bed around 11 p.m. The next day, Stephan was supposed to drive Madeline to school. He said he dropped her off, but Madeline never made it. Later that night, Madeline was reported missing. As police began their investigation, they said they found hundreds of inappropriate images of Madeline on Stephan's phones, including abuse being performed by Stephan. He was arrested, and then, a couple of days later, Madeline's body was found 20 miles away. Stephan was then charged with murder, and he now faces the death penalty. It wasn't until March 1st, 2024, 5 days after her disappearance, that Madeline's body was finally discovered. So how did her remains end up more than 20 miles from her home? And what did the area look like? Court TV producer Cody Thomas traveled to the scene and gave us a look around.
Now, we are here on Hickory Road in St. Cloud where Madeline Soto's body was found. And if you take a glance behind me, you see there's not really much to this road. I mean, there's a little flat land on the left, a little brush on the right. It seems like you'd be able to see something from your car as you pass down this road, but it's not a busy road. There's only been 15, maybe 20 cars that have passed by since we've been here for the past half hour or so. And also, there's no security cameras on any of these light posts. But as we continue this way, we are reminded that this actually is where Madeline Soto's body was found by this memorial set up by community advocates, family members, maybe even some friends. Because right back there in that span of trees is where her body was found by police.
On February 26th of 2024, Madeline Soto was supposed to be dropped off at school just like any other day. Instead, she disappeared for 5 days until her body was found, discovered next to that rural road in St. Cloud, Florida. This leads me to my first question of the night. What happened to Madeline Soto? To help us answer that question, let's bring in our special guest. Joining us tonight, Court TV producer Cody Thomas, and also with us, the creator behind the Grizzly True Crime YouTube channel. She knows this case like the back of her hand, Gisela K. All right, Cody, we now have a little more information that can help us answer this question, right?
That's correct, Ashley. There's a new collection of case documents that have recently been released, giving further insight on how exactly Madeline Soto lost her life. Now, a portion of those documents from the perspective of an investigator on the case mention details from Madeline's autopsy done by the medical examiner. It says in part, during the autopsy, Dr. Giles expressed concern over the hyoid bone in Madeline's neck. Dr. Giles stated the right portion of the bone was not intact, which could possibly be related to her being strangled. Dr. Giles listed the initial outcome of the autopsy as pending. On March 29, 2024, I received the case synopsis from the medical examiner's office. Dr. Giles ruled the cause of death was strangulation and the manner of death as homicide. So, Ashley, based on what we've learned from this portion of those case documents, it's easy to note that the final moments of Madeline's life were nothing less than horrendous.
Oh, Cody, you are not kidding. And seeing that walkthrough and the scene where the body was found, where that memorial was set up. Gisela, thank you so much for being with us. Tell me your initial thought and knowledge of this case, learning that strangulation is what killed Madeline Soto.
I was a little bit surprised at first based on how many medications Jen Soto and Stephan Sterns talk about. So I thought, especially with Stephan Sterns saying that he gave Madeline an extra dose of medication that night, and what he was Googling 2 weeks before, which was a very powerful anesthetic, I thought it could be something like an overdose. So to actually see that come out, that it was really homicide by strangulation, was more devastating than this case could have been. I mean, it's already so sad, but that's truly terrible. And they believe she died in the home.
They believe she died in the home, but there's also information that came out that she was seen in his vehicle and that she was likely deceased at the time she was seen in his vehicle. And so, it begs the question, it's not just the horrible cause of death, but it's also learning that next steps were taken allegedly by him with her in the car deceased driving around.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And driving around for many hours, because he drove around for about 2 hours with her body strapped into the front, in the passenger seat. And then he put her body in the trunk and went home. And it was in the trunk for about 3 hours more before he finally took it to the deposition site and just left a 13-year-old girl like that between bamboo bushes. It's terrible.
Discarded like trash. So depraved. Cody, as far as Madeline's body and where it was found, do the documents go any further into those specific details?
Well, Ashley, that's another key part of these new documents because it serves as a great indicator as to how Madeline's body ended up where it was found. It also discusses the state of her body, saying in part, Madeline showed signs of decomposition to one side of her face and her hands. The bottom of Madeline's socks were clean, which indicates she did not walk anywhere or the socks would have had dirt on the bottom. Now, of course, this implies that Madeline had to have been carried to the remote location off the side of Hickory Tree Road. And as we know from previously released documents, Sterns was allegedly seen placing a lifeless body in the trunk of his car on surveillance the morning that Madeline went missing, which means he more than likely carried that body out of that car and into those trees where she ultimately was found.
I think ultimately it's a good thing that sometimes we hear that adage, criminals aren't always smart, because some of the things that they are saying they have as forensic evidence in this case, of course he's presumed innocent, but Gazella, these are things that make a difference when going to trial and trying to prove guilt.
Absolutely, and Stephan Sterns was definitely not, based on what he's accused of, smart. I mean, everything that he did from, I forgot the phone, and she also forgot her phone, but really he powered off Maddie's phone that morning. Things like that. And then actually driving around with her body and then coming back and saying, I forgot my gate clicker. But then on the surveillance, you have your gate clicker. And then the rest of the day going back and forth to the dumpster and even going to that area just to think of what he did. And I really think he had never changed a tire in his life. So it took him so long, and he must have been quite panicked, to run across the road speculatively with the body. I mean, that is insane. He had probably 3 to 5 minutes, maybe, depending on which cars came past. He's definitely not a smart guy.
But it also means, with the bottom of the socks clean, that she wasn't dragged or accidentally dropped and then dragged on the feet. I mean, it means that absolutely those feet must not have touched the ground. Do you think this is an appropriate case, Gazella, for the death penalty?
I can't think of a better one, honestly, because it's years and years of alleged abuse on this poor little girl. And then it seems to me that it could be a plausible motivation that he was just like a jealous boyfriend. That's how he was acting. Certainly wasn't a boyfriend, predator and groomer. But hearing about her crushes, talking about her crushes, that's the only time we really heard him emotional on any of the police interviews. And then going there and her freaking out saying, are you still coming tomorrow? I mean, it just, to me, I don't know which other case would deserve it more based on everything we know about him. Of course, I would need a lot more time to say everything else, but I do think this is one to pursue that in.
Yeah, and I would agree with you if these allegations are proven to be true. A predator and a groomer. We do have to squeeze in a quick break, but don't go anywhere. Our guests will be sticking with us as we investigate our next question. Was Stephan Sterns showing red flags?
She brings a lot of joy. She's a very good girl. It definitely doesn't feel the same around here if she's not here.
Did you know that in middle-income communities, there are about 13 books for every child?
But in some underserved communities,
There's only one book for every 300 children.
studies show that having lots of books at home is one of the best ways to help a child succeed in school and beyond.
That's why the Scripps Howard Fund started the If You Give a Child a Book campaign
To give books to children who need them most, like me.
So please, if you could give a child a book today.
Just scan the QR code. We would be so grateful.
She brings a lot of joy. She's a very good girl. It definitely doesn't feel the same around here if she's not here. She was so happy, too. She was looking forward to my visit here. She was looking forward to us all being together. She was just happy. She was just very happy. I loved her like she was my own.
That was Stephan Sterns in a police interview after Madeline's disappearance, but prior to his arrest. Did his answers seem strange? Let's go back to another moment between Sterns and authorities before he was charged in this case. In this clip, Jen Soto is having her initial conversation with police the very day that Madeline disappeared. Sterns appears to keep interrupting while police are trying to ask Jen questions about Madeline. Take a look.
What's her name?
Madeline. Madeoine.
Madeline. Last name?
Soto. S-O-T-O.
S-O-T-O?
Yeah.
Date of birth?
February 22nd, 2011.
How tall is she?
5'1".
Weight?
110 pounds.
110, 112.
Hair color?
Blonde.
Blonde, like a dirty blonde.
Like a dirty blonde?
Yeah.
Okay, eye color?
Blue.
Any other scars or anything like that? Which you know?
Scars?
No.
Tattoos.
No.
You'd be surprised.
Knowing what we know now as we look back at Sterns' behavior, it may be clear that something with him wasn't quite right. At the very least, he seemed to be acting suspicious, and knowing the allegations in this case certainly make it easier to see Sterns as an obvious suspect. So did anyone in the house have these suspicions? This brings me to my next question. Was Stephan Sterns showing red flags? Our guests are still here with us to help us answer that question. Court TV producer Cody Thomas and creator of the Grizzly True Crime YouTube channel, Gisela K. Gisela, I'm so sorry, Gisela. Cody, first, walk us through some of what the documents say about Stephan's behavior.
Well, Ashley, Sterns' behavior was questionable, to say the least. The case documents pulled details from a police interview with a roommate by the name of Angelica, who lived in the home with Sterns, Jen Soto, and Madeline. She told police that on the morning Madeline went missing, Sterns was acting out of the ordinary. The documents say, in part, Angelica stated she saw Stephan in the residence at that time. Angelica said Stephan was acting odd and going upstairs and downstairs and in and out of the apartment that morning. Stephan was also washing clothes, which she has never seen him do. Now, these actions could be seen as the behavior of someone who is nervous. But remember, Ashley, police have Sterns on video that same morning at the dumpster in their townhome community, throwing things away before the time that he said he took Madeline to school, which we now know is not true. But some of those things were later revealed to be Madeline's backpack with her school-issued laptop.
Gisela, you hear this and it's like red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag. And sure, it seems innocent. Oh, he's doing laundry. He usually doesn't. But I would argue when you take each of these things together, it certainly does seem suspicious and like he's the one that did something to Madeline Soto.
Absolutely. And he was trying to take control of the narrative, even in describing everything about her physical appearance, what she was wearing. And it's so strange to me how he brought up what she was wearing, you know, when he talks about the Crocs, right? But he left one of Maddie's Crocs in Jen's room and threw one away. And just everything about him he's a walking red flag. I mean, I could probably name 50 things that were so suspicious of him that day. One being, he came through supposedly for her birthday. That's what his parents said. But the next morning, he claims he's taking her for McDonald's, right, for a special meal. But then he says she didn't really want it, so he gave her a Danish pastry that he just packed. Like, who is going for a breakfast but also packing a snack at the same time? Like, that doesn't sound like him. He's not quite such a planner. I mean, there's so many things that his outfit changes, the different outfit the victim was found in, the washing that he was doing, the phone being powered off and powered on, and everything. He's the reddest flag.
And as Cody was talking about in that interview watching, I couldn't even put up with or stand the fact he kept interrupting Jen as she was trying to answer questions. All right, Cody, the new documents include more from the roommate, is that right?
Yes, that is right, Ashley. And in the documents, it's revealed that this roommate, Angelica, heard concerning noises coming from the room where Sterns and Madeline were sleeping the night before she was reported missing. Within those documents, it also says in part, Angelica stated she went to sleep around 2:30, which is when she was hearing noises coming from Stephan's room. She described the noises as if someone was putting stuff on a table, which in order for her to hear noises, it would have to be significant based upon how the noise would have to travel through 2 closed doors and across a hallway. Now, of course, this information does not directly mean any sort of crime was occurring, but it does leave a little room to question why this roommate did not check on things when she heard those noises that she found to be suspicious.
Oh, Gisela, let me bring you back in on this because, yes, you do question why didn't she do something, say something, go check. Now, hindsight being 20/20 for all of us, right? Maybe that's why. But again, it's another red flag that there's a child in the home, and you would think even roommates or other people in the home would say, let me go check to make sure everything's okay.
Absolutely. And the roommates had before seen Madeline in that bedroom number 4, the guest room, with Stephan. And they actually texted Jen Soto and said, are you okay with your daughter being up here alone with them? And Jen Soto's reply was, thank you. That's it. So maybe they just thought, oh, okay, like, don't worry, the mom's checking on her or everything should be fine. But they may have gotten desensitized over time, which is, I guess, why this case spread so much awareness of those red flags to look out for. If you see something, say something. If you hear something, maybe go check it out. It could actually save a life.
And if you're a parent, you shouldn't be sending your child to sleep in another room or letting it happen, thinking that's okay with this man who's living in your home. All right, Cody, there was also information about what state of mind Stephan and Madeline's mother were in once they confirmed that Madeline was missing.
Yes, Ashley, and that's where Sterns' behavior becomes increasingly strange. The documents talk about this friend of Madeline's mother named Natalie, who volunteered to help pass out missing flyers the day after Madeline disappeared. Now, the documents state in part, Natalie told Jennifer that she would help pass out flyers on February 27, 2024, or do whatever else that needed to be done to find Madeline. That's when Stephan looks at Natalie and asks her, are you okay? Natalie became annoyed and told him no. Natalie was bothered with this question from Stephan and thought the question was odd. Natalie described Jennifer as being in pieces, meaning very upset about Madeline's disappearance, and Stephan was acting like he was not so concerned. So, strange behavior all around, Ashley. One would think that you would be in turmoil, as Natalie said, if your child or loved one was missing, but the fact that he seemed normal and calm could be very telling when his trial date finally comes.
Oh, Cody, I agree with you completely. And to say, are you okay to somebody else when you're not even seemingly upset about Madeline being missing? And we know that he also lamented at one point about Jen wasn't really a relationship he was that concerned about, but it was a concern he had because he had established such a bond with Madeline. Gisela, weigh in on this one.
I mean, that is disturbing. He did say that. He also admitted to former girlfriends that he would sleep in the bed with Madeline and, you know, sometimes get excited and all of that weird stuff, which caused that breakup. But I don't even, it makes me speechless to think that he was actually allowed to do this for years, that he had such a strong bond with her. And Jen said, you know, she used to love to watch them play and, you know, paint figurines and all of that. And they were like hobby partners, but it's too much, like bedtime. It's too much. It should never have been allowed. And she just seemed to just be okay with it.
It should never have been allowed. And I think it's a lesson, Cody, I'd love for you to weigh in just about all people in general. And you think, oh, I can trust them, it's fine. It's your kid. You've got to be diligent to say, let's not take that chance and let's make sure we protect our child first.
That's exactly right, Ashley. Now, I don't have any kids of my own just yet, but anytime I see one of these cases, I always think about my little brother. You know, and if he was in one of these situations, I would be shredded to pieces if he was missing or going through something, let alone I don't know where he is. So I can't imagine just acting calm, acting normal, asking somebody else who's not even affected by this whole thing, are you okay, when they're just trying to help me? The whole thing doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. You're not going to say, hey, are you okay? Like everything is okay. There's so much here to unpack. I just want to say thank you. Can't thank you enough, Cody Thomas and Gisela, for being with us. Gisela, I did it to you again, and I'm so, so sorry. I know your name. I am Judge Ashley Wilcott. Thank you for tuning in to Vinnie Politan Investigates. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues. Welcome back to Vinnie Politan Investigates. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott, filling in for Vinnie Politan. Tonight, we continue investigating the grim reality of a young teen's life and death, Madeline Soto, who allegedly suffered several years of abuse until she was murdered in cold blood. 13-year-old Madeline Soto was celebrating her birthday with her family all day Sunday. Then Sunday night, she went to sleep at her home, not alone in her room, not with her mom Jen in the master bedroom, but with her mom's boyfriend, Stephan Sterns, in the guest room. The next day, Stephan says he dropped Madeline off at school, but she never showed up. Instead, she was reported missing. Police found images of Madeline being sexually abused on Stephan's phone, and then they found her body. Now, Sterns has been charged in 2 cases and is facing the death penalty. As a part of their investigation, police interviewed numerous people who were familiar with Stephan Sterns. One man in particular, referred to as Frank in court documents, had called police himself. He told them he had information about the case and wanted to speak with someone. Now, during that interview, an investigator asked Frank if he knew anything about Sterns' relationships. Let's take a look. I asked Frank if he had any conversations with Stephan about his sex life. Frank stated no, however, they would be out and an adult female would be interested in Stephan, and Stephan showed zero interest. Frank said Stephan was talking about he and Jennifer ending their relationship, and Madeline's name came up during that conversation. He was more upset about the bond he created with Madeline than having a relationship with Jennifer. Seemingly uninterested in adult women, but upset about possibly losing his bond with Madeline Soto, that brings me to an important question. What do you make of this? To answer that question, we're going to need some help from our experts. Joining us now, licensed mental health and nationally certified clinician and adolescent psychologist, Sharonda Brown. Also with us, forensic psychiatrist, trial expert witness, author and columnist, Dr. Carol Lieberman. Also a part of the investigations, authorities interviewed Sterns and Soto's roommate, Angelica, and according to court documents, she had asked Jen about her relationship with Sterns. Let's take a look at this as well so that we can talk about this Angelica stated she had another conversation with Jennifer about her sexual interactions or lack thereof with Stephan. Angelica said they didn't have sexual relations often, and that is why she didn't want to be with him any longer. Police also asked Jen directly about her relationship, and here is what she had to say. I asked Jennifer to explain her and Stephan's sex life, which she described as vanilla. Stephan would want to have anal sex with Jennifer, but she said she didn't want to. All right, let's talk about these things. Dr. Lieberman, you hear some of these descriptions about, for instance, seemingly not interested in women and wanting to have anal sex. What do these things say to you initially, if anything?
Well, it shows that he has deep psychological problems that began in childhood, obviously, as they do. His mother, the interview with the parents of Stephan is really fascinating because it sheds a lot of light on things. For example, his mother said that Jennifer was a bad influence. She was a bipolar, bisexual drug addict. So she was blaming Jennifer for all of the problems. But, someone who doesn't want to have sex with an adult woman and wants anal sex, you have to think of a number of things. First of all, I think he had failure to thrive syndrome. He was given Adderall as a little boy, and so presumably he had some kind of ADHD or ADD. And then also he had a car accident where he was run over twice and he had a head injury. So I think that all of these things caused him to have failure to thrive, and he was really operating at the level of a little boy. Now you could also add to that wanting to have anal sex. Could he have had some homosexual preferences? I think he really wasn't differentiated. He was failure to thrive. He was still a little boy, and he was expected to be with Jennifer in a male role.
All right, Sharonda Brown, as a child abuse expert, has anything yet spoken to you to say, wait a minute, he may be one that does or will or is abusing children?
Absolutely. It sounds like he has some things going on with him when he was younger. And what we know about most perpetrators is that they were perpetrated on. And usually what they find interesting are the youth that remind them of who they were when they were perpetrated on. So they will go after the age range that they were perpetrated. So for instance, if he was perpetrated at 8, he would perp on someone who's 8 and he'd identify with them. And that's usually what happens with perpetrators. And they have a hard time connecting to adults and having adult relationships because their chronological age does not add up to their social emotional age. So women may have been prey because if they had young children, had young daughters, that would have been a purpose as well. So I think that a lot of things stick out here when I'm hearing this case and I'm listening to the interview with the parents. You can tell at some point things happened with him and they overlooked that as well and made excuses because everyone seemed to be the blame but their son.
Everyone seemed to be to blame. All right, ladies, another interesting piece of evidence revealed in the court docs came from Sterns' search history. Take a look. Upon reviewing Stephan's Google information, Stephan also searches a drug on 2 different dates, sevoflurane. Sevoflurane is a volatile anesthetic that provides hypnosis, amnesia, echinacea, and autonomic blockage during surgical and procedural interventions. It is unknown why Stephan would be searching this item using the search terms of show up in drug test when he wasn't attempting to get a job or he didn't have any children that were having surgery. All right, Dr. Lieberman, it is a weird thing to search, and look at the effects of that drug. My understanding is it has to be administered perhaps through an IV. What does this say to you?
Well, it says that, and also his parents said that they were both taking a lot of drugs and sleeping all the time. It seems like he was trying to escape from life, through the drugs and through, obviously abusing a little girl. And I shouldn't say obviously, allegedly, all right, but it really does. Well, no, it's not allegedly. We have the pictures. But you know what's interesting is we're getting, of course, all of these pieces. We're adding pieces to the puzzle, trying to put it together. But in the end, it really is coming out to be what we suspected from the very beginning, which is that predators on children get together with women who have children, little boys or little girls, because they get into these kinds of relationships so that they can have access to these children. And Jen seems like someone who, you know, did not exactly have a million men trying to become her boyfriend. So she was selling her daughter, basically. I don't mean literally, but she was prostituting her daughter to keep Stephan around.
That's what I think too. And Sharonda, I think the drug he was researching, there's only one reason he was looking that up and Googling, is because he wanted something to incapacitate one of his victims.
I agree. I think that when you're trying to figure out how to get someone to sleep or how to get someone out of their own body and mind, you definitely want to have a level of control. And it sounds like with her turning 13, she may have decided to fight back. She may have decided that this wasn't going to be something she wanted to do anymore. She probably did start picking up with friends and other people finding interest in her. And usually when people commit crimes, it's usually because they've lost control of some point. So it sounds like the drug would have helped him maintain control on some level. And I'm not sure exactly how he chose to administer, if he did, but I do think that when it gets to that point, it's usually because there's a loss of control and you're trying to confine something. And it's possible that this confinement got out of control and it led to her murder.
Yep, control. Authorities also interviewed one of Stephan Sterns' ex-girlfriends, and when asked about their sex life, here's what she had to say. She disclosed that Stephan had a tough time having an erection. She described one very weird occasion where Stephan had her lay face down, completely flat, as if she was dead, and had sexual intercourse with her. She states that it was the only time he was very erect. All right, Carol Lieberman, that's just bizarre to me.
Necrophilia, sex with a dead body. Well, we know he had a bunch of sexual, oddities. For example, when he was a child, or a teenager, he was caught taking pictures through a window and so on. I mean, the most obvious reason for this would be some kind of a perverted sort of relationship, perhaps an abusive relationship with his mother. But we don't have evidence for that, and I think that's going to be hard to get. But in other words, there are these several different things that point to a very distorted, twisted kind of sexual growing up with something that distorted his sexuality.
And I think it's okay if it's distorted and you're with consenting adults, but it's a whole different thing when you are allegedly committing these crimes against a child. Thankfully, our guests are staying with us. Still to come, what did Jen Soto know?
If you see my daughter, just please bring her home. I just hope you're okay, Maddie. I hope you're safe. I hope you're not hurt. I just hope she's okay.
One of the most successful true crime TV shows ever.
This is crazy.
Now has a new home on America's original true crime obsession, 48 Hours on Court TV. Coming up next on Court TV.
This is not normal behavior. She's not the type that would just run off. We don't know where she could be, and we're scared. We just want her home.
We're desperate for any answers, anything that you can do to help. I'm here for it. Just please, if you see my daughter, just please bring her home. I just hope you're okay, Maddie. I hope you're safe. I hope you're not hurt. I just hope she's okay.
That was Jen Soto pleading for Madeline's safe return just one day after she was reported missing. This was prior to the arrest of Sterns, but it does beg the question, did Jen suspect any foul play from her boyfriend? We now know from court documents that the night before Madeline's disappearance, Jen allegedly sent Sterns and Madeline to go sleep in a separate room, a decision the police later questioned her about. Let's take a look. Jennifer said she didn't feel comfortable with Madeline sleeping with Stephan, and it didn't look right to her. I asked Jennifer when she started feeling comfortable with it, and she said she never was comfortable with it. I challenged Jennifer about telling them to go to sleep together on February 25th of 2024, and she said it was a selfish move because she wanted a good night's sleep. This brings me to the final question of the night, but it is a very important one. What did Jen Soto know? Our guests are still here with us, licensed mental health and nationally certified clinician Sharonda Brown and forensic psychiatrist Dr. Carol Lieberman. Sharonda, first of all, let's start with there are no charges against Jen Soto, and she's not a person of interest as far as we know. But what should she have known? Did she know, to Dr. Lieberman's point earlier, that she was basically prostituting her daughter out?
I think she absolutely knew that. When detectives asked her, I believe her first response was, he was abusing my daughter sexually. So she knew that, and I think that she was aware of that. I think whatever she needed to do to go to sleep so she could avoid it was helping her cope with what she knew was happening. This child was 13 years old. Why else would she need to sleep with a grown man? So I do believe that the mom knew something. I think that to keep someone close to her, to keep a companion there or some kind of affection, she probably was saying, hey, if this is the bargain, you can sleep with my daughter. And that's very common amongst perpetrators and the victims' moms.
And she is not a suspect. We know that, Carol Lieberman, but tell us what you think about some of the details you're hearing of what she told police.
Well, first of all, it is so frustrating and incomprehensible that she is not a suspect. The only thing that I'm hoping is that I mean, she should be like an accessory at the very least. We're not saying that she necessarily murdered her daughter, but she certainly is guilty of something, putting her in harm's way, a bunch of charges. So I'm hoping that they are just saying that she's not under suspicion, she's not a person of interest, and we're not charging her, like waiting for her to do more or say more that will incriminate herself. But you know, she really. I mean, some of the things that well, first of all, it's really interesting to watch her now, to look at those interviews now, because when we first saw them, when this first happened, you had some sympathy for her. And now that all this information has come out and we realize, you know, that she did know so much more and she was okay with it, she was putting her daughter in harm's way, it seems so hollow. You know, all of the sort of tears or whatever, you know, please tell me if you see my daughter. I mean, it's just very chilling to see that this mother really didn't love her or have enough care for her. She at the very least, she was putting Stephan before her daughter. And so, I just hope that they really are ultimately going to charge her with something.
Well, let's add to the mix another little set of facts about something that Jen said, because despite Jen telling police she was uncomfortable with Sterns and Madeline spending time alone together, according to court documents, when asked by her roommate, Angelica, she had a different response entirely. Let's take a look at that response. Angelica said she had a conversation with Jennifer about Stephan and Madeline going into the same room together, and Jennifer would tell her that Stephan would never harm Madeline. So she was okay with it happening. All right, Sharonda, that's a very different answer. When the police ask, she kind of throws him under the bus, but when her friends ask, oh yeah, it's fine, it's okay.
Well, with your friends, you want to normalize behaviors that you know are not okay. I think when it comes to the police, you don't want to seem guilty of anything. So those are very two different goals. Most women don't want to be judged by their friends because their friends will say, hey, that's not okay. They can judge you to a different level in a different capacity. Social shame is totally different from legal shame. And I think that with women, especially when it comes to their men, they will paint the picture that everything is perfect before they tell the truth about being unhappy or saying, hey, I can't please my man man, but I know someone who can. So whether it's a threesome, whether it's my child, whether it's someone else, I'm going to allow that and say everything's fine.
Dr. Lieberman, are you able to take that one step further? Is it possible, based on your expertise, to say, because the mother did what you, Sharonda, just described so well, because the mother did that and told one story to the police, a different one to friends, she knew what she was doing. There was no unknown in the steps she was taking.
Yes, she did know a lot more than she was trying to give out. You know, people are saying, well, particularly Stephan's mother, but I mean, she, the daughter, first of all, had puberty at 11, went into puberty at 11. And apparently at school, because of her developing, you know, earlier than some of the other girls, she was being felt up by boys at school, which is very interesting because it's not just, I don't think, because of the fact that she was developing sooner, but also that there was a sense, you know, I think they had a sense that she was engaged in some kind of sexual activity, and they were attracted to her in that kind of way. And I'm not, you know, I mean, little kids don't understand all of this, but unconsciously, they were attracted to her. She was like a more experienced kind of girl. Also, right before she was killed, they were saying that she was showing some signs of bipolar disorder, manic depressive disorder, like her mother had. And so, at least that's how they were interpreting it. But it could well have also been, I mean, maybe that was true, but maybe it was also that this was a reaction to all these years of sexual abuse, that she was getting more aggressive towards her mother and, you know, acting out more irrationally.
All right, and again, Jen is not a suspect at this time, but despite allowing Sterns to stay in her home during her police interview, Jen Soto gave a highly negative description of Sterns. Following this, police allegedly showed Jen images of Sterns' abuse of Madeline. He had many of those on his phone, and this appeared to have led her to a disturbing realization. Jennifer said that Stephan is a master liar and a master manipulator. Jennifer said once we showed her the photographs, that is when she realized Stephan was guilty. I asked Jennifer if she thought Stephan killed Madeline, and she said, at this point, I do. Do you think, Sharonda, that it was really a sudden realization because she saw pictures? Or do you think, in her gut, mother's instinct, she might have known this man did something bad to my daughter?
I do think that there was a sudden dose of reality once she saw those pictures. People live in denial quite a bit, especially when they have an addictive behavior. And if we're talking about drug use and we're talking about her goal to make her partner happy, that's all she saw. And so once those pictures set in, it was the connection of logic, because usually it's just urge that's involved with addiction. So once those urges were suppressed and so the pictures say, hey, this is reality, it was like, oh my God, there was like this shock of this light bulb that went off. So I do believe that there was a disconnect up until that point. And that's when she was able to come to a sense of like, all right, this is possible. Whether I'm in denial or not, I have to face this.
Yeah, well, following his arrest, Sterns' mother sent him an email that seemed to implicate Jen as a possible accomplice to these alleged crimes. She wrote, "We all know Redacted was heavily involved in this, and I am disgusted that she is free and you are not." She went on to say that whole family is willing to stay quiet and let you take the fall for everything. So his mother on his side in the last 10, 15 seconds, Dr. Lieberman, does that surprise you?
No, and all I can say is if they put the parents on the stand, although she's saying that, you know, I think they would not be helpful to his case. Let's put it that way. But yeah, they're saying that he is the front man, that he really loved, you know, felt for, has remorse for Jennifer's, for Madeline's death, and that the mother doesn't. So, I mean, you know, that could well be true, that he's taking the fall because he feels guilty for what he did do to Madeline.
Could be.
It's possible.
All right, it's possible, and I apologize, we're out of time. Thank you so much to my guests for joining us tonight, Sharonda Brown and Dr. Carol Lieberman. We know your time is valuable. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott. Thank you for tuning in to Vinnie Politan Investigates. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.